supporters strongly reject that interpretation of events. They argue that nothing the teenager said during the interrogation is fully trusted because of the emotional and psychological condition he was in after the tragedy. According to them, Derek was escorted to the homicide division by armed officers and questioned by armed detectives. His supporters say that kind of environment is deeply frightening for a 13-year-old child, especially while dealing with the shock of the mother's violent death. No direct accusations of physical abuse or mistreatment by police have been made. However, in response to public attention, while inside the interrogation room, Derek was unable to say no fluid words. In June 2025, during a hearing at Miami, be allowed in full. Because of that, the defense team is now seeking to have their possession entirely excluded from the evidence that was allegedly presented to a jury during trial. If the court agrees to that request, it could significantly affect both the direction of the case and the legal strategy of both sides. Derek Rosa, being represented by Jose Baez, according to report, is handling the case free of charge. Baez is a well-known defense attorney in high-profile criminal trials and has previously represented major clients, including Gussy and Harvey Weinstein. His involvement in the case has only intensified from the detention surrounding the
Morning.
trial. Baez, attorney Russell Baez, and the defense attorney for Derek Rosa. Derek, I would like to thank everyone for all of their well wishes and interest in this case. This has been an incredibly difficult time for both Derek and me. The 911 call cuts off in the middle of screams. Just 2 minutes later, another call comes. A woman with a knife stuck in her back somehow makes it to a neighbor's house and collapses right on the doorstep. She can't explain where she escaped from. Police arrive, but no one knows which house might still have people inside. Officers start hearing
The United States.
inside one of the homes there's smoke. In the back, the fire is
Where
already.
you watching from?
A few minutes later, they find a small child in the yard. They carry him out. He's alive. The child's mother is missing. There are still people inside the house. And then the gun fires them. Bullets come flying out of the windows toward the officers. Firefighters can't get close. The fire keeps getting stronger. No one knows how many people are inside or who is shooting. The standoff drags on for hours. Then the door opens. A man walks out of the house
Yeah.
wearing nothing but shorts with his hands in the air.
Who are you to tell me what to
He wasn't the
do
one shooting.
on my
When the
stream?
fire is finally put out and officers go inside, they find bodies. Multiple victims.
It's not a cigarette.
Trauma.
It's not tobacco.
Clear signs of arson.
It's not
And that's all.
heroin. It's not some drugs that you, the people you be around, do.
About a month before, with a piece of nighttime footage showing another woman disappearing in the trunk of a car. Hey guys, let me grab you for just a second. I'm really curious where my audience is watching from, so I'd love you to drop a comment and tell me what city you're in and what time it is for you right now. Thanks for taking a moment. Go ahead
Good
and
morning,
share.
Destiny.
And now let's keep going. In early June
Yeah.
2022, police in Harper Woods, just northeast of Detroit, received an emergency call from a woman who was being held hostage. When the officers arrived,
Yeah, that was a
they
foot.
found the street completely detailed.
How many times you want me to say yeah? Like, what the fuck?
Managed to escape after a brutal attack.
You ain't telling me nothing. You're not me. And how you cope with your pain and how you get through life and how I cope and get through life is two different ways. Like I said,
The chaos only
1, 2, you don't have to be on my stream watching me. You could be doing something else this early morning. It's only 11 o'clock in the morning. You could be doing something else like figuring out what you gonna eat. Go get your ass in the shower or something. Like, what?
just before 3 a.m. on Saturday.
What's the subject of my stream? self-educating,
his home on Lennox Street.
educate,
Inside the
feed,
Detroit, he
knowledge.
watched a white,
Like,
mid-sized four-door
I'm from New
pickup
York City.
pull up in front of the
When I
house.
say, when people ask me where I'm from, I say United States. If I don't know you and I don't know where you watching
Before making the call, he
from, I'm gonna
reviewed the
say
video
United
of the car
States.
on his phone.
Bro, honestly, I'm making you a mod right now. I'm making you a mod. You want another shout out, Tavion? Like what? I'm gonna make you a mod. People that's hating can't, they can't move me. Feel me, bro? It's like I watch stuff that people that don't watch. Then like I could always play music. I could do so much stuff that I choose not to do because other people doing it. Feel me? Right. That's all I'm saying.
So, the backyard next door to you or across the street?
All right, Tavon.
While the caller was recording, he could hear rustling coming from the vacant lot next to his
It's
house.
not
Moments
Tavion.
later, the
It's
video captured a man
Tavon.
running back to the car, slamming the
It's
trunk
not
shut,
spelled
and driving away.
Tavon, bro. Tay
Convinced he
is
had just
not
witnessed part
spelled
of a
T
murder,
A
John
Y
Doe
V
waited
O N.
patiently for police
Your
to arrive,
YouTube name not
but that
spelled how
night
you
they
want me to
never showed
pronounce
up.
it.
The next day, a little after noon, the anonymous man decided to check the area himself. In the vacant lot, slightly deeper into the brush along the edge of the property, he found a body.
Yes, I called about somebody getting shot last night, and the police never came out, and I'm walking down the street because the body was right there.
What's the location?
Smoking died.
One moment.
Matter of fact, I got a video of the nigga car who did it, and I'm about to tell you what time I
This
took
not
the video.
Facebook, so I can't laugh at your
At
comments.
2:52 a.m., probably at 2:50, the lady was screaming help. She ran down the street, and all you heard was a gunshot, and then he got quiet, and then I called you guys, and all that shit. Now this lady dead right here, 5 miles.
When officers from Detroit Police Department arrived, they found marks on the ground that looked like drag marks leading past a driveway
The
next
looks.
to the vacant lot.
I
Out
appreciate
on the
that.
street, in front of the house, they recovered a spent shell casing.
I ain't gonna lie.
Beyond an overgrown
Like
sidewalk,
even
the
before
victim
this
was lying
morning,
among trash
you
and
been
thick
watching me.
vegetation.
You
She was a
then was
young
supposed
woman,
to sub,
only
but I
partially
guess you
clothed,
waited.
with no personal belongings
That's
or
cool.
identification
It's
on
alright.
her. In fact, it wasn't until the autopsy was completed the next day that she could be officially identified, mainly by her distinctive tattoos. 24-year-old Natala Morris, known to friends by the nickname Sparkles, had suffered multiple blunt force injuries across different parts of her body. Although a gun had been fired, the autopsy showed she did not die from a gunshot wound. She had been beaten to death. This young, outgoing older sister had no known enemies. News of her brutal killing was not only devastating for her family, May 9th, 2019. Around 3 o'clock in the afternoon, a quiet neighborhood in Kenosha, 15-year-old Kay Jugger had just gotten home from school with her mother. Music was playing through the house. They were joking around, dancing, and just going about their normal day. But someone had already been watching the house. Later, security cameras would capture a figure in a hoodie, dressed completely in black. The person left a bicycle near the park, walked along the neighboring houses, and entered through the open garage door. Just over a minute passed. Then,
Alright, me
gunshots
to
started.
last.
First
Would
one,
I take
a few seconds
100K
later,
right now or
another,
time travel
and another,
10 years
and
ago?
another.
I would take
7
option
shots in
2.
total. Kay's
With
mother
option
hid
2,
inside the
I'll
bathroom,
be up
called
100 M's.
911,
Honestly,
convinced the shooter was still inside the
I'll
house.
change so
But
much in my
before that,
life.
she managed to see the person clearly, and she
I'll
recognized
just
him
change
immediately.
it because
Her
I
daughter's
don't
ex-boyfriend.
regret nothing I've been
She
through
begged
in
him
life,
to stop.
nothing I saw in life.
He gave
Everything
only
I've been
one
through in life
response.
made me the person I
No,
am today.
I have to. And then he pulled the trigger again.
Honestly.
Hey guys, let me grab you for just a second. I'm really curious where my audience is watching from, so I'd love for you to drop a comment and tell me what city you're in and what time it is for you right now. Thanks for taking a moment. Go ahead and share that in the
Good
comments.
looks, T1.
Now, let's keep going. A doorbell camera across the street captured the sound of the
It will
gunshots.
take time,
7 shots
patience.
echoed through what was
Learning
usually a
life
quiet,
happens
peaceful
overnight.
neighborhood. Moments later,
Unless you
the
win the
hooded figure
lottery.
ran from the scene.
You can win the
Inside
lottery
house,
today, you're
mother
gonna
and
end up
daughter
dead
were
by
left
tomorrow
fighting for
once
their
people
lives.
find out.
Around 2 o'clock that Thursday afternoon, on May 9th,
Depending on how
2019,
much money it is.
Stephanie Jugger left her home in Kenosha to pick up her 15-year-old daughter Kay from school. Stephanie ran a photography business out of their home, which meant she was usually able to drive her daughter to and from school herself. She and her husband Nick had 3 children. Their oldest son, Tyler, had already moved out. Their youngest, 11-year-old Mason, was attending a local elementary school. At around 2:20 in the afternoon, Stephanie and Kay pulled into the driveway, opened the garage, and went inside. Once they got home, they turned on music. It was their time together. That part of the day when the house belonged only to the 2 of them, they danced, laughed, and joked around. A few minutes after getting home, Kay went to her room to get ready for her shift at her part-time job. Stephanie went into the master bathroom to finish drying her hair. Then, exactly at 3 o'clock, the sound of gunshots broke through the noise of the hairdryer, followed immediately by screams. At 3:02 p.m., Stephanie called 911. Locked inside the master bedroom, Stephanie had no idea how badly Kay had been injured. She was too afraid to leave the room, believing the shooter could still be somewhere inside the house. But one thing she felt certain about was who had pulled the trigger, her daughter's ex-boyfriend.
Yeah, the documentaries. Yeah, no. I'm about to play 2 songs. Tell me which one is from Brooklyn and which one is from the Bronx.
Stephanie couldn't know for sure, although investigators would later determine that the shooter had already fled the house before the 911 call was made. The attack was already over. Not knowing that, Stephanie finally left the safety of the bathroom and ran back to Kay's room. There, she...
Nigga, they know the G's get felt. Oh, you got the bubble, tell me how it felt. I was telling the G's, I aimed for the head. Shot through the back and it came out his chest. Nigga, front got shot, watch him his bag. Nigga, beat up, talking like he up next. Go down, trying to spin in that old black tech. Niggas sprint for days, you ain't doing come fight. I ain't think by the diamond, hopping those pegs. Free on the bros, nigga, Ray got shot. Nigga, from the block, hey boy, shot on the light. He got dumped, don't duck in the ladder. So about the shit I orchestrated, stand. Nigga, money got tagged. The bro straight coolin' like we on they app. Got it going, they building a stack. Tryna roll with the block, nigga. Gotta aim for a top, nigga. Why would I crash out? I'm on the line, nigga. Minimize issues before you get popped. My spice got me on the road to the line. Nigga, stop bitching, rock with me on that block. You know that he mad that he can't get his whole back. Gearing it down for the back, shit, flicker, we know that. I'm so deep in the trench, gotta know that. Instead of go slide up and chop, being so rap songs telling me can't get it open. Niggas drop whole songs, they bogus. And for all of the op-ops, thinking the back door open, y'all better notice. Don't die trying to be on some whole shit. If I get line, I'ma give you the whole clip. Thanks for my doubles. Here's all that niggas in trouble. That niggas know who's running the field. Man, started the drill, we made him a rebuttal. Shooting the belt, and he was spinning, but Jake Dougie almost popped him like a bubble. Free me 2 man, he wanted the who man, load this spinning with him, and be bugging. How about bow, bow, niggas that's how bow. On my chest, so sweet, start beat, getting put to the test, nigga. They know the G's get my elbow. You got the bubble, tell me how it felt. I was telling the G's, I ain't for the head. Shot in the back, it came out his chest, nigga. Front of my shot, rocks on his back, nigga. Beat up, he took like he up, next going down, trying to spin in that old black tech. Niggas screw to this day, they ain't doing correct, dickhead. Came from my face when I'm on quad res, nigga. infatuated. Give me that fucking game.
I'm Chris Rich.
90, bitch. Stop to stay with that fucking up. Part of the trip. I'm tripping this down, I'm lit. Big clock on my hip like it's part of the fit. Nigga, I'm not with this shit. Ice on my neck and my wrist. Every time that they see me, I shit. Every time that they see me, I shit. Little bitch wanna eat at the theater. Your bitch is so boring, basic. I'm in the foreign racing. Don't ask about me, I'm sanctioned. Niggas be telling as soon as they get to the station. I'm trying to dodge them like Matrix. I'm booking that nigga a rapist. Give him my shit and I ain't switch. You ain't talking no bitch, you ain't speaking my language. I'm about frankness. I'm Benjamin, a reader. Can't waste no time with a teacher. I got a text if they wanna feature. Your baby mama said she wanna threesome. Got her legs in the end cause she wanna deeper. I gotta leave her. They tryna follow, they know I'm the leader. I'm not fun under the eye, nigga like this. I don't touch the light. Keep trying to indict this. Real my niggas locked down on Vikings. They say I'm the nicest. Killing these niggas like ISIS. I just keep shitting on them, keep shitting on them. And no, I ain't wearing no diapers. I'm trying to run it right up to a minute. Can't fuck with that bitch, she too silly. I'm fucking a good nigga miss me. She loving my struggle too trippy. I'm swerving the coupe, it's a Bentley. Doing what the who really. All of my niggas get busy. They get it popping like billies. I stay with it, chopping the clock, cause it's 50 ain't work by our niggas. Not a shot, maybe I give it up straight, no chaser. Give me face, I think, oh, what? I got her on time and I straight that. Heavy on TD, I feel like a bingo. Running my city, I feel like a mayor. Bad bitch, really, she look
Coaching Uno in the same video.
she gon' shoot a nigga dead if I say so. How about the demon with demons? Woke out up on we headed the demons. On the road, chicken and scheming. On the road, everything mugging and reading. If the topic is money, I listen. Niggas serve about the money I'm getting. I'm trying to get rich on a mission. And we not the same, I'm different. You are not fun of the eye, nigga like this. I got that touch, might inside. Keep trying to indict this. Real my niggas locked down on Vikings. They say I'm the nicest. Killing these niggas like ISIS. I just keep shitting on them, keep shitting on them. And I ain't wearing no diapers. Bitch.
I wonder where they're doing construction at.
The complex around them was the kind of place most people drove past without a second glance. Rows of student apartments, a few
That
security
shit way
guards,
louder than whatever I'm listening to,
but
honestly.
for the people gathered there that night, nothing about it felt ordinary.
Even if I wanted to lay down, I wouldn't because that shit is annoying.
And Nia, two of the ones that actually came right.
It's not like they try to issue a phone or sounds like it's I don't like there's no first mission answer besides something like we heard and we're best friends or so I don't expect what we're best friends are entire family. I get like that. It's just it's driving me crazy that if anything was wrong, if nobody should call me out of no effect, she's just like
Her car sat in the lot next to Gussy Park. So something was missing. The license plates had been stripped off entirely. A few spaces outside another car, nearly its twin, a way shimmer developer wearing those very same plates. Except that car wasn't hers. Up in her apartment, the lights were still burning behind drawn curtains. Through the door, officers could hear a television playing to nobody. Inside the bathroom, a tub sat full of water untouched. like someone had drawn a path and never made it back to music.
When's the last time you were here before?
This morning, I came back from work at like 6 and I was going to be stuck up in here.
When's the last time you saw her?
Not of course back there. I went home for graduation. I really need surgery. Yeah, just circle back there. The song was here today because they turned on the bar today and they was some gold washing. You know what's going on like that.
Have you seen her boyfriend around here?
I left at the weekend, so I know that she's been on her.
Let's go outside and hear it. Obviously, like from the heart, this is we're going to check in. We're going to give a number of one of the boyfriend. I don't know if they was really out of like guidance to the party. She was also somewhere. There's people smack them into it. This here, this looks like numbers. This is where there's this here. I was just like, what the fuck, man? And you asked her if she's in the bathtub in here. Hey, Jerry. So, can you ask her if she's in the bathtub? It's like full of water.
Yeah, sorry, that was checking today.
It's alright. Is your boyfriend here come over here and do what he wanted or say?
Yeah, they always do all these together.
Okay.
So it's not like I can work here.
Just give me a key.
I don't think so. That's what I'm saying. Like, sorry, it's here because I don't think he has a key. Usually, I'm like, well, I'll leave the door unlocked. Like, if I know he's here or like, just leave the door unlocked. So I'm just
Can you ask her if she's in the bathtub in here? Hey, Jerry. So, can you ask her if she's in the bathtub? It's like full of water.
In the washing machine, a load of men's clothing turned slowly through its cycle, spinning in the kind of silence that made everyone standing there a little more uneasy.
yeah, sorry, that's what checking today.
It's alright.
Because I
Is your boyfriend able to come over here and do what he wanted or say?
yeah, they always do all these together.
Okay.
So it's not like I can work here.
Just give me a key.
I don't think so. That's what I'm saying. Like, somebody's here because I don't think he has a key. Usually, I'm like, well, I'll leave the door unlocked. Like, if I know he's here or like, just leave the door unlocked. So I'm just
Nia herself was nowhere, not answering her phone, not answering her door, not anywhere her friends or family could think to look, and the people closest to her were certain of one thing. Nia would never have walked away from her own life like this, not voluntarily, not without a word to anyone. This was a young woman with a packed calendar and a new job she loved, someone who sang in her church choir every single week and called her best friend like clockwork. People like that don't just disappear for days at a time.
So you think this is an actual? Like an actual missing person? Like, I don't know what it is. Everyone else is missing. Like, okay, well, I think this is an answer, no. Absolutely. We got nothing to lose to believe that she's an answer other than the fact that boyfriend was an asshole. Then this dispute that you're talking about, could that be?
I don't know. There's still somebody coming and going from the apartment. That's really fun.
Yeah.
So like roommate, I hadn't seen her in almost a week. Doesn't think anything of it. Yeah. He was pissed at multiple occasions. They're like, hospital for hard. I don't know what time the police was called. Saying they were escalating the violence really. He threw water on her several times. Took off in her car when she came out. She was getting ready to talk to him. He rode around with the window like down the street.
Police had already searched her apartment top to bottom. They talked to everyone who knew her. Again and again, they tried tracking down her boyfriend, 25-year-old Donovan Lewis, hoping he might know something nobody else did. Every attempt to find him would come back empty.
She's a little fishy. Why is person to talk to?
There's a wise. She's going to call it. You're morning.
How so? What else should we have though? Both of her cars are here. One friend has no car. The best friend, her parents, her god-sister. If you asked her, she's not worried.
And from what other people have said, boyfriend been around here the last couple days? Well, they claim she's Sunday night there. What about Pop? Yeah, how do you get that from him? Yeah, so she's been missing since Sunday. Yeah, that's what I saw. Yeah, I don't know. You guys will wait outside for a little bit, see if anyone shows up. I just feel like you'd be a little bit more concerned if your girlfriend's doesn't know anything. That's the one person who doesn't talk to us all that. So this is the other thing I thought was weird. I think it's just a complete fraud. That down here, that white car is actually hers. They're both on flats. So those cars did not move recently. What the fuck? I know, this is a weird one, I'm telling you. Yeah, hers and that you got. What is that? Well, that's her god sister, like her other best girlfriend. Yeah, the guy she. Yeah. Oh, yeah. They're trying to speak to mom. I'm gonna call mom back. I gotta just call me back. Her other male best friend, who I think is, on the other side of the fence. He has a seminar from her. Her roommate has a seminar from her since Friday because she's out of town all weekend. Yeah, any friends for this suspect? We haven't got that far yet to get to his friends. Yeah, I feel like this film is just maybe detectives. Yeah. Well, I guess it is just detective work, but now, because I think some fishy's going on here. Damn, dude. Something fishy. What did you do that for? What did she tell? Boyfriend, why was she never actually cut off everyone? Then just after midnight, while officers stood near their patrol car quietly running through what to do next, a figure stepped out of the darkness at the edge of the lot. A young man walking calmly, a backpack slung over one shoulder, heading straight toward them like he already knew they'd be there waiting. It was Donovan. The officers asked him a few simple questions about his girlfriend, and what came out of his mouth in response was nothing close to what anyone standing in that parking lot expected to hear. What's going on, sir? So I can't remember what we talked about, but just let me know. Sure. This one is coming parking first. Where is she? We're on the way for it. We're in 235. Where's she? Creek. For at? Right. Dispatch. You got any weapons on you, John? Alright, I gotta raise some subject real quick, okay? You need the right to remain silent. Anything you say can't be used against you in court of law. You need the right to talk to the lawyer and have anyone present with you before during any questioning. Tell me from the beginning what's going on. Okay, give me 1 second, Chris. 6 1 second. Trying to get over it. So it is okay. Understand secure yourself. Move forward. You got a great couple weeks. that took a twist.
Yeah, not creepy that way at all.
Within minutes, a routine missing person case had turned into something far more serious. A death investigation unfolding in real time in the middle of the night in a sleepy college town that had never seen anything like it. And Donovan kept talking. About a heated argument behind closed doors, about private messages discovered on a cell phone, about a married pastor. A man whose name half the community would recognize instantly, about what he claimed had actually happened inside that apartment one quiet Sunday afternoon. The deeper into his story investigators went, the more disturbing the picture became. And what they would eventually uncover went on to shake this entire community to its core, becoming one of the most talked about cases this part of Michigan had seen in years.
That tire went flat.
Oh, is that what happened?
It was just focused. On Sunday, my house, she wanted to go to church. She went outside. She found time in this morning.
Think somebody's doing it? Think the car's just old and the tires are bad or what?
Found out that going on to pastor.
Oh.
I just got a call. She told me can't get rid of it. Just church. Basically, she told me that I can't get her parts on that. I want to have to sit down. Because I'm thinking about
This pastor threatened her. Over with a car, why?
because she told she was out. She said, can't do this.
How was he using her? Like they had a relationship or something? What do you mean?
I went to the farm.
Who's a pastor? What's yours?
She goes to the second Baptist. They're doing a station.
Okay.
That's the street. She's also working on her phone. She died on her phone. Kind of got like a position on the keys in her hands and saw it was a pastor, so he said, she kind of just gave up. Gave the phone. And all the time she laughed. She gave the phone, she's ready to laugh. Because you know, okay, if I do make that accusation, she reaction that she had. Just think about that after you find out it's fucked up.
Before we go any further into this true crime documentary, drop a comment and let me know what city you're watching from and what time it is right where you are. I always love seeing where this audience tunes in from. And if you're new here, go ahead and hit subscribe because we cover cases just like this one every single week. Now let's go back to where it all began. The call came in during the early morning hours of Thursday, June 28th, 2018. The kind of call that starts quiet and routine and ends up anything but. Officers with their Kalamazoo Police Department were dispatched to Hunter Ridge Apartments, a sprawling off-campus housing complex on the western side of the city, just a short drive from Western Michigan University. At that hour, the complex was still and dark, the kind of place where most residents were either asleep or just getting off a late shift. It was filled almost entirely with college students, young people juggling classes, part-time jobs, and the early stages of independence that come with finally living on your own for the first time. It was the last setting anyone would have picked for the start of a true crime documentary case that would eventually grip an entire community. Officers arrived that morning looking for 24-year-old Annie Mack, a psychology student known to everyone close to her simply as Nia. She wasn't someone who blended into a crowd or slipped quietly through life. She was an honor student with a resume most people twice her age couldn't match. Student Council, the Health Occupations Association, marching band, concert band, varsity cheerleading, volleyball, and softball, all stacked up over the years. Even after starting college, she kept singing in her church choir back home and danced with the women's dance team at WMU. Anyone who'd ever spent time around her would tell you the same thing without hesitation. Nia stayed busy, Nia stayed in touch, and Nia simply did not go quiet for days at a stretch. It wasn't in her nature. That's exactly what made the silence so alarming to the people who loved her. Her closest friend, LaQuenta Watson, was the one who first sounded the alarm. The two of them talked every single day without fail. It was just part of their routine, the kind of daily check-in best friends fall into without even noticing. So when days passed without a word, and every single call rolled straight to voicemail, LaQuenta's concern quickly turned into real fear. She didn't just sit and wait. She drove out to Nia's new workplace, the Great Lakes Alternative Research Center, where Nia had spent the last 3 months working closely with children on the autism spectrum, a job she had been genuinely thrilled to land, one she talked about with real enthusiasm. What LaQuenta learned there only deepened her dread. Nia had missed 2 consecutive days of work without any explanation at all. For someone who had been this excited about a new opportunity, an unexplained absence like that simply didn't track. Around that same time, a childhood friend named Dominic Thomas was independently arriving at the same unsettling conclusion. He'd been in touch with Nia's mother, Loretta, who lived out of state in Louisiana, and with LaQuenta as well. The 3 of them, separated by distance but united by the same growing worry, all landed on the same fear roughly the same moment. Something was wrong, and it needed to be reported to police without any further delay. When officers arrived at the apartment complex, the scene only deepened the unease. Nia's white 2008 Chevrolet Malibu sat parked in its usual spot, but its license plates were missing entirely, as if someone had deliberately removed them. Parked just a short distance away was a second Malibu, nearly identical to her own in color and model. Except this one was displaying her plates, while the vehicle itself turned out to be registered to a man named Gustavo, someone with no obvious connection to Nia at all. Both cars had multiple flat tires, leaving them sitting useless in the lot, neither one capable of actually being driven anywhere. Up in the apartment itself, the lights were clearly on, and what sounded like a television could be heard playing from inside. Officers knocked. Nobody answered. Dominic gave investigators one more piece of the puzzle worth noting. Nia had experienced ongoing tension in her relationship with her boyfriend, 25-year-old Donovan Lewis. Friends called him Donnie. He'd previously attended a local college and played basketball there, and at one point had worked as a lifeguard at the local YMCA. He'd only recently returned to Kalamazoo after a stretch of time in Indianapolis, staying with his brother while completing an internship at a multimedia company out there. Since coming back to Michigan, he'd taken whatever steady work he could find, eventually landing a night shift janitorial position at a large manufacturing plant in the area. The kind of job that kept him out of the apartment most nights and asleep most days. When Nia's roommate Cora arrived to let investigators inside, she explained that it actually wasn't unusual for the 2 of them to go several days without crossing paths. They'd only been paired together less than a year earlier through the university's student housing placement system, and their schedules rarely overlapped enough to see much of each other day to day. But once Cora and officers actually stepped inside, even she could sense something was off. The bathroom Nia normally used was filled with standing water, as though a bath had been drawn on and simply never used. The air conditioner had been switched on. A washing machine in the unit was mid-cycle, running a load that included men's clothing along with 2 turquoise bathroom rugs that didn't match anything found in Nia's own bathroom. Meanwhile, scattered throughout her bedroom were the kinds of personal items she would have packed without question if she'd actually planned to leave town, left behind, untouched, exactly where she put them. And then there were the 2 Malibus sitting stranded in the lot, both with flat tires, both completely undrivable. If Nia really had left on her own, there was no obvious explanation for how she could have physically gone anywhere at all. Officers walked away from that first search without a clean answer in either way. Nothing pointed definitively to a crime having occurred, but almost nothing about the apartment
You tell me.
either. It was the kind of scene that left more questions hanging in the air than it answered. Meanwhile, Donovan himself remained impossible to reach. Everything investigators knew about him at that point came secondhand, filtered through the people closest to Nia. Both Dominic and LaQuenta confirmed that Donovan had also been telling people he couldn't reach her since Sunday, that he too had apparently been trying without success. Officers tracked down an address for his mother's house and drove over to check, but no one answered the door there either. It was Nia's close friend and god sister, Luenda, who finally gave investigators the lead they needed. She reached back out to Officer Lockett and told him she knew exactly where Donovan was. Finishing up a night shift as a janitor at Stryker, a major medical equipment manufacturer with a facility nearby. According to what she'd heard, he was expected to head back to the apartment complex around 3:30 in the morning once his shift wrapped up.
I guess we'll wait outside for a little bit, see if anyone shows up.
Later that night, officers returned to Hunter Ridge to wait for him. By then, both Cora and Dominic had already gone home for the evening, leaving the complex even quieter than before. Once again, knocking on the apartment door brought no response from inside. The officers stood near their patrol vehicle in the dark, talking quietly between themselves about a case that seemed to be growing heavier and more unsettling with every passing hour. Then out of the darkness at the edge of the lot, a figure approached. A young man in a black t-shirt and khaki shorts, a backpack hanging loosely off one shoulder, walking with a kind of calm that almost felt rehearsed, heading straight toward the two officers like he already expected to find them there. It was Donovan. He didn't run. He didn't hesitate. He started talking almost the moment he reached them, and what came out of his mouth immediately shifted the entire tone of the encounter. The officers made the call to hold off on pressing
I'm over here
too
looking
hard,
at my old
preferring instead to wait
whatchamacallit,
for detectives
and I
to
feel
arrive
so
and take over the
sissy.
questioning properly.
Sounds like her dad is other things after the fact. That's him. Okay. You've already told them twice now. You don't want to talk to him.
United States.
When you go back in, move his chair to the other side of the table. Okay. And just tell him I don't want you to think about it like
No,
you're
I think I'm sexy,
my sergeant.
especially when I have all my piercings in. Oh my god, I feel
Where you're at.
hot.
So you can see.
Prickle-lipping, oh, cross-eyed and listen, oh,
But even as he was placed into the back of a patrol car, Donovan kept volunteering pieces of information on his own, unprompted, offered up in scattered fragments that didn't yet add up to a complete picture. By the time backup officers made it back to the scene, what had started out as a missing person case just minutes earlier had already, unmistakably, become a death investigation.
I look like a nigga when I
From
don't
that
have
point forward, an Officer Lockett became the primary point of contact. He drove Donovan to the station personally, keeping the conversation light and casual along the way, while everyone waited for detectives to arrive and formally take the lead. During that short ride, Lockett heard a string of allegations that caught him completely off guard. Donovan claimed that after going through his girlfriend's phone, he'd discovered personal messages from her pastor. Messages that convinced him the two of them were involved in something that went far beyond a typical pastor-congregant relationship. He went even further, alleging that Nia had been using that relationship for financial leverage, claiming the pastor had been quietly covering her rent, paying her phone bill, and had even provided her with that second Malibu sitting out in the lot, all while Donovan himself had been out of state. That Sunday, he said, everything had finally come to a head. An argument had broken out inside the apartment, one rooted in tension that had clearly been building for a long time before it ever reached that point. It was a single thread, but it was enough to pull investigators directly toward a man already well known throughout the community.
I miss being a girl.
Can you empty this? Yeah, people get on this shit and ask the same questions. If you wasn't watching
Pastor's church
before,
was
I'm
the
not
Second
gonna keep
Baptist
repeating
Church,
myself.
a married man who also served as the local president of the NAAACP, a figure whose name carried real weight well beyond the walls of his own congregation. Nia had joined his church earlier that year, getting involved in its activities and its choir with the same enthusiasm she brought to everything else in her life. At the time, nobody around her could have imagined that her connection to that church would eventually sit at the very center of a criminal case that would go on to make headlines across the entire state. What Donovan would go on to tell detectives in the hours that followed ran far deeper than anything he'd offered up in the back of that patrol car. And that's where the story truly begins to unravel. Once detectives finally arrived and took over the case, Donovan Lewis did something investigators hadn't necessarily expected so soon into the process. He sat down and gave them a full written statement, laid out from beginning to end in his own handwriting. It would go on to become one of the single most important documents in the entire case. The foundation that investigators would spend the coming months testing, piece by piece, against everything else they uncovered. Every sentence of it would eventually be measured against forensic evidence, witness accounts, and the physical reality of the scene itself. According to that statement, the trouble had been building for a long time, and a surprising amount of it centered on something as ordinary as Nia's car. The tires on her Malibu kept going flat, over and over again with no clear explanation, to the point where it became a constant and increasingly expensive headache for her. Donovan claimed that Pastor Strickland had personally stepped in and covered the cost of at least one of those repairs. And to Donovan, sitting at home turning it over in his mind, that single detail planted the very first seed of suspicion about the nature of their relationship. Not long after, he said, Strickland offered Nia the use of an entirely second vehicle, another white Malibu that he claimed to own outright. But the pattern, frustratingly, didn't stop there. That second car eventually developed the very same tire problems and became just as unreliable as the first one had been. From there, Donovan said, the pastor started showing up at the apartment more and more frequently, offering rides when her car wasn't working, checking in on her, becoming a steadier and more constant presence in Nia's day-to-day routine than Donovan was ever fully comfortable with. Each visit, in his telling, only deepened the unease that had already started settling in. Earlier that same year, Nia had also gone on a trip to Mississippi, fully paid for, traveling alongside the pastor and several other members of the church choir. To Donovan, sitting on the outside of that trip entirely, it became one more piece of a picture he was already convinced he understood. He went on to claim that Nia had told him directly, in private conversations between the two of them, that she was using her connection to the pastor as a form of financial leverage, and that she'd even threatened more
What
than
you about
once
to make?
to expose the relationship to Strickland's wife and to others in the community if things didn't go her way. Donovan alleged that the pastor responded to those threats with threats of his own. And around that same time, right when Strickland had handed over the second Malibu, Nia allegedly told Donovan that the pastor had made it unmistakably clear he was willing to hurt her and pushed far enough. According to Donovan, that single comment lodged itself in his memory and never really left. That Sunday, by his own admission, Donovan had been drinking. He said he'd spent the entire previous night going through Nia's phone message by message, running on almost no sleep at all. And that certain messages from Strickland in particular set off the strongest reaction he'd had yet. A kind of anger that had been quietly building for weeks and finally boiling over all at once. While Nia was in the bathroom running a bath, an argument broke out between them, the kind that started out as a fairly ordinary back and forth, but escalated faster than either of them seemed able to control. At some point in the middle of it, Nia told him flatly that she wanted him gone for good, pulling out one of his suitcases and starting to pack his things into it himself right there in front of him. That moment, according to Donovan's own account, is when everything turned. He said the confrontation became physical from that point forward, and that Nia was left unresponsive as a result. He later admitted to returning to the room afterward, and that what happened in those following moments ultimately led to her death. What he described doing in the aftermath was methodical, almost disturbingly so. He admitted to placing her remains inside his suitcase in an attempt to conceal what had happened, temporarily leaving it near the apartment complex's guest parking area before coming back to move it again the following day. The next night, once it was fully dark outside, he returned in his mother's minivan and drove out to Comstock Creek, near the intersection of East Main and Sprinkle Road, a location he admitted he'd already scouted and picked out well in advance. Investigators came to believe he chose that specific, remote stretch of creek deliberately, with the clear intention of making sure it would never be found.
It's a little bit slow. identify where the SUV is? And how do you where the white truck is? Attempted that way. And how do you get her in the water? You just throw her in a suitcase into the water. Okay, and this is the right spot? Okay, where do you want these guys to go? Straight down?
That was Donovan's version of events, laid out in detail and signed in his own hand. But detectives, even with a full confession in front of them, weren't prepared to simply take it at face value. Not entirely. Not yet. What troubled investigators most, almost immediately, was how the fatal confrontation had supposedly played out inside that apartment. When officers first searched the residence, they didn't find anything close to the volume of blood they would have reasonably expected, given the severity of what Donovan was describing. On the surface, walking through those rooms, the apartment simply didn't look like the scene of something this serious. It took a far more careful, far more deliberate second pass through the unit to finally turn up what investigators were looking for. Small, limited traces of blood in the hallway, along the edge of Nia's bed, and worked into the fibers of the bedroom carpet. The stains themselves were minimal, almost easy to miss at a glance. But for experienced forensic investigators, even small traces like that can carry enormous weight when it comes time to reconstruct exactly what happened in a room. Investigators also found clear indications that certain surfaces had been deliberately wiped down afterward, which only reinforced the sense that someone had taken real time and care to clean up in the hours that followed. Some potentially critical evidence never made it into police hands at all. Donovan admitted to discarding one item in a dumpster near the apartment complex, something investigators strongly believed could have been significant to the case. But by the time anyone made it out there to check, the trash had already been collected and hauled away for good. Whatever it had been, it was simply gone, lost to the normal rhythm of a Thursday trash pickup that had no idea it was driving away with potential evidence. Donovan had also placed the 2 turquoise bathroom rugs in the washing machine and disposed of additional items separately at his mother's house. Nia's purse, her identification, and her bank cards eventually turned up discarded near his workplace, though only a portion of those personal belongings were ever actually recovered intact. To investigators, items like that often hold the key to retracing a victim's final hours and movements. And losing even part of that trail made it an already difficult investigation that much harder to fully piece back together. Then there was the matter of the pastor himself, and his account didn't line up with Donovan's at all. When Kalamazoo police sat down with Strickland directly, the picture he painted looked nothing like the one Donovan had described. He told officers, plainly and without hesitation, that Nia was simply a member of his congregation and his choir. Nothing more, nothing less. He firmly denied that any inappropriate relationship had ever existed between the two of them, insisting that every single interaction they'd ever had stayed well within the normal bounds of a pastor and a member of his church community. And notably, when detectives circled back and pressed Donovan on this exact point, he was forced to admit something significant. That Nia had never actually told him outright that she was romantically involved with Strickland, only that she'd claimed to be using him for financial help. That distinction, small as it might have seemed on its surface, mattered a great deal to investigators trying to carefully separate established fact from Donovan's own assumptions. Strickland confirmed that the Mississippi trip had absolutely happened, but he offered an entirely different explanation for what had actually come out of it. According to him, Nia had met a young man during that trip and started a relationship with him, one she deliberately kept hidden because she already had a boyfriend waiting back home in Kalamazoo. To keep that secret successfully, Strickland claimed, she had saved the young man's phone number under the pastor's own name in her contact list. That way, if Donovan ever happened to glance at her messages, he'd simply assume they were coming from Strickland himself and never think to suspect anyone else. About a month after first giving his statement to police, Strickland reached back out to investigators again, though this time, it had nothing to do with the process of the case itself. He wanted the white Malibu back, the one still sitting in police custody as evidence. He claimed the car actually belonged to his wife, Jasmine, and that he'd bought it secondhand in cash from a man named Gustavo. The problem was he had no title for the vehicle and no bill of sale to back any of it up. Without solid documentation proving legal ownership, investigators had no real choice. They couldn't release the vehicle, and in the end, it was never returned to him at all.
To speak with Pastor Strickland. Hi there, this is Sergeant Charles Trump at Kalamazoo Public Safety. How you doing today?
You said you losing your head, is it falling out?
Not too bad, sir. I got a voicemail
Did
message
you
from
leave
Chief
the
Boyce
bleaching
that
too
said
long?
questions about an automobile.
No, it's not that. I just my hair's been
One
getting
automobile that was
since
taken related to the
women, 6 different cities, 6 reputations built on fear, loyalty, and blood. But what connects them isn't how they lived, it's how brutally their stories ended. From nurses fighting to escape gang ties, to teenage shooters who became legends on the streets, these 6 endings are darker than anything you'd expect. Stay until the end, because the worst story might surprise you. Tyosha Mitchell. Tyosha Mitchell, known to friends and family as Tyosho, was the kind of person who seemed determined to rewrite her story. She worked as a nurse, cared deeply about people, and wanted to build a future far away from the streets that had once shaped her life. But leaving that world behind turned out to be far more dangerous than she could have imagined. Years earlier,
You making me some?
Tyosha had been deeply
Last time I made some,
involved
you
with the
didn't eat
Madstone
none.
Bloods,
What you made?
specifically a faction known as the Vietnam
And
Baby
what?
Guerrilla Gang.
You gonna lie, keep lying? I definitely.
I don't like that. I don't like that.
When
Don't
are
call
you
me a
talking
liar.
about? So what day are you talking about?
The other day when I made the vegan bacon with the egg and cheese, with the chicken patty, and I said I'll give you half of my chicken patty. I would have eaten that shit later on in the day because you said you didn't want it because it smelled like it was going to make you nauseous. Well, if you don't eat nothing and you don't put nothing in your system, you're going to continue to feel
Yeah, that
nauseous
was a
and
couple
start to
days ago.
have a fucking stomach of a
Whatever, bro.
snake.
3 women continuously assaulted her for 31 seconds. Witnesses later said the attack became so severe that she dropped into a fetal position on the ground. Instead of ending there, a man allegedly forced her back to her feet so the beating could continue. The violence didn't stop
Whatever,
that
bro.
day. After returning to her Richmond
It's a whole
apartment,
different day.
Tyosha was reportedly visited by 3 women.
Yeah, but every time you ask me to make you something, I make it, and then you want to say that you don't want it. You're making me waste food. I don't like
Okay,
waste
so
food. I don't like wastefulness.
if you don't want to make me that, make me something else.
Make you what, cereal dress?
No, I'll make my own cereal.
From there, the situation took an even darker turn. Authorities believe the group forced Tyosha into a black Hyundai Sonata and drove her to a secluded area in York County. Once they arrived, she was ordered out of the vehicle. There, prosecutors say she was shot at least 8 times, suffering wounds to her head, back, abdomen, legs, and other parts of her body. Around 3:47 that morning, nearby residents reported hearing gunfire. Just a few hours later, a jogger discovered a body hidden roughly 10 feet off the roadway in a wooded area and immediately called police. 25-year-old Tyosha Mitchell was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators recovered 14 shell casings nearby, painting a grim picture of what had happened. As detectives began piecing together the case, strange details started piling up. Inside Tyosha's apartment, the floors appeared freshly mopped. Outside, investigators found forensic gloves discarded near the building, while a blanket hung from a second-story window. It looked like someone had gone to great lengths to erase evidence. Then came the breakthrough. Text messages recovered from Tyosha's phone revealed connections between several suspects and the Vietnam Baby Guerrilla Gang. Those messages
Good afternoon,
also
I'm
pointed
okay.
to Hezekiah Carney, known as HK, as a leader within the group. The investigation soon zeroed in on the black Hyundai
My phone
Sonata.
be blacking out.
One
Yeah, I'm
burned-out
okay.
passenger side taillight made the vehicle easy to track. Surveillance cameras captured it 11 times during the critical hours surrounding the murder. The car appeared repeatedly near Tyosha's apartment.
Okay, hold on.
Showing up in Newport. money trouble. She said she struggled with the material and went looking for someone who could help her understand it. As the school year went on, she slowly came out of her shell. She started making friends, smiling more, and seeming more comfortable around people. Those who worked with her believed she still had a real chance at building a different future. They wanted her focused on education, college, and opportunities beyond the streets. But somewhere along the way, things changed. When Gakira returned for her freshman year,
Okay,
her attendance
definitely.
became inconsistent.
Speak
Before
to you
long,
next month
she
or
found
before
herself
next
caught up in
month.
the juvenile justice system and eventually dropped out altogether.
Okay,
Years later,
later.
when former school staff learned about the life she had allegedly become involved in, many struggled to believe it. The quiet girl they remembered didn't match the image that was now being described in news reports. In 2011, Gakira faced a charge related to discharging a firearm. Her mother later maintained that police never actually recovered a weapon, and the case eventually fell apart after witnesses changed their stories. A judge temporarily placed her in an alternative school inside Cook County's juvenile detention center, hoping to keep her safe and away from the violence-consuming parts of Chicago.
You think you
Although she
scared
was
me?
ultimately found not guilty, her connection to the streets only seemed to grow stronger afterward. According to her mother,
You get
Gakira
yourself
was
mad.
intelligent, sharp, and well-spoken, but
You get
school no
yourself
longer
mad.
held her attention. Instead, she spent more and more time outside, where she became known by the nickname K.I., a shortened version of her first name. She began running with gang members in an area known as Tukaville, named after Shondale Tuka Gregory, a teenager whose murder had already become a symbol in Chicago's ongoing gang wars. As violence continued to erupt, 6 women, 6 different cities, 6 reputations built on fear, loyalty, and blood. But what connects them isn't how they lived, it's how brutally their stories ended. From nurses fighting to escape gang ties to teenage shooters who became legends on the streets, these 6 endings are darker than anything you'd expect. Stay until the end, because the worst story might surprise you. Tyosha Mitchell. Tyosha Mitchell, known to friends and family as Tyosho, was the kind of person who seemed determined to rewrite her story. She worked as a nurse, cared deeply about people, and wanted to build a future far away from the streets that had once shaped her life. But leaving that world behind turned out to be far more dangerous than she could have imagined. Years earlier, Tyosha had been deeply involved with the Madstone Bloods, specifically a faction known as the Vietnam Baby Guerrilla Gang. The group had ties to Norfolk, Virginia, and connections to the larger Black Pea Stone Nation. She wasn't just another member either. At one point, she had risen to become the highest-ranking female in the organization. But by 2023, she was trying to walk away from that life for good. According to court records, leaving the gang wasn't as simple as making a decision and moving on. To earn permission to leave, she reportedly had to endure a brutal beat-out ritual. 3 women continuously assaulted her for 31 seconds. Witnesses later said the attack became so severe that she dropped into a fetal position on the ground. Instead of ending there, a man allegedly forced her back to her feet so the beating could continue. The violence didn't stop that day. After returning to her Richmond apartment, Tyosha was reportedly visited by 3 women and 2 men. One carried a gun while another wore a mask. They pounded on her door, and once inside, investigators say they attacked her again. A witness later told police they believe jealousy involving a romantic relationship may have fueled the assault. From there, the situation took an even darker turn. Authorities believe the group forced Tyosha into a black Hyundai Sonata and drove her to a secluded area in York County. Once they arrived, she was ordered out of the vehicle. There, prosecutors say she was shot at least 8 times, suffering wounds to her head, back, abdomen, legs, and other parts of her body. Around 3:47 that morning, nearby residents reported hearing gunfire. Just a few hours later, a jogger discovered a body hidden roughly 10 feet off the roadway in a wooded area and immediately called police. 25-year-old Tyosha Mitchell was pronounced dead at the scene. Investigators recovered 14 shell casings nearby, painting a grim picture of what had happened. As detectives began piecing together the case, strange details started piling up. Inside Tyosha's apartment, the floors appeared freshly mopped. Outside, investigators found forensic gloves discarded near the building, while a blanket hung from a second-story window. It looked like someone had gone to great lengths to erase evidence. Then came the breakthrough. Text messages recovered from Tyosha's phone revealed connections between several suspects in the Vietnam baby guerrilla gang. Those messages also pointed to Hezekiah Carney, known as HK, as a leader within the group. The investigation soon zeroed in on the black Hyundai Sonata. One burnt-out passenger side taillight made the vehicle easy to track. Surveillance cameras captured it 11 times during the critical hours surrounding the murder. The car appeared repeatedly near Tyosha's apartment, before later showing up in Newport News and then near the location where her body was eventually found. Just minutes before, witnesses heard gunshots. Cameras placed the vehicle less than a mile from the crime scene. When police eventually stopped the Sonata, they found more evidence inside, including cell phones, a black mask, and a 9mm bullet. Investigators later determined the bullet matched the same make and model as shell casings recovered at the murder scene. Phone records only strengthened the case. Data placed several suspects near Tyosha's apartment and near the location of her murder. Investigators also discovered extensive communication between the
What brought you
accused
here is that you want to
before and
subscribe to
after
the channel.
crime. Authorities ultimately charged
I'm from the
Jamaica
United
Langley,
States.
Acacia Jackson, Hezekiah Carney, and Jaquan Jones in connection with Tyosha's death. In August 2024, the case finally reached its conclusion when the defendants entered guilty pleas. Carney and Jones each received 38-year prison sentences for their roles in the abduction and murder. Langley was sentenced to 20 years, while another co-defendant received 35 years, Gakira Barnes. Back in 2010, Gakira Barnes was just a young girl trying to find her place in the world. When she started attending a charter school on Chicago's South Side as an 8th grader, nobody around her could have imagined the reputation she would later gain on the streets. During her first month at the school, she picked up a suspension for being disrespectful, but that was hardly enough to make her stand out. School administrators remembered her as quiet and somewhat shy. She wasn't known for fighting or causing major problems. In fact, when she walked out of math class, it usually wasn't because she wanted trouble. She simply struggled with the material and went looking for someone who could help her understand it. As the school year went on, she slowly came out of her shell. She started making friends, smiling more, and seeming more comfortable around people. Those who worked with her believed she still had a real chance at building a different future. They wanted her focused on education, college, and opportunities beyond the streets. But somewhere along the way, things changed. When Gakira returned for her freshman year, her attendance became inconsistent. Before long, she found herself caught up in the juvenile justice system and eventually dropped out altogether. Years later, when former school staff learned about the life she had allegedly become involved in, many struggled to believe it. The quiet girl they remembered didn't match the image that was now being described in news reports. In 2011, Gakira faced a charge related to discharging a firearm. Her mother later maintained that police never actually recovered a weapon, and the case eventually fell apart after witnesses changed their stories. A judge temporarily placed her in an alternative school inside Cook County's juvenile detention center, hoping to keep her safe and away from the violence-consuming parts of Chicago. Although she was ultimately found not guilty, her connection to the streets only seemed to grow stronger afterward. According to her mother, Gakira was intelligent, sharp, and well-spoken, but school no longer held her attention. Instead, she spent more and more time outside, where she became known by the nickname K.I., a shortened version of her first name. She began running with gang members in an area known as Tukaville, named after Shondale Tuka Gregory, a teenager whose murder had already become a symbol in Chicago's ongoing gang wars. As violence continued to erupt between rival factions, Gakira found herself pulled deeper into the conflict. Police later suspected that she may have been involved in several shootings, including at least one homicide. One
Yeah, you
theory
can take
even
yours
suggested
first, 'cause I'm
that she
making
was
mine into a
responsible for
sandwich.
the killing of rival gang member O.D. Perry when she was only 14 years old.
Okay.
Despite the rumors and suspicions, investigators never gathered enough evidence to charge her. Witnesses refused to cooperate, and physical evidence never connected her to the crimes. Still, her reputation on the streets continued to grow. After one of her close friends, 13-year-old Taekwon Tyler, was killed in 2012, many believed the loss changed her completely. Police said she became obsessed with retaliation and revenge. She even adopted social media names that reflected her loyalty to fallen friends and her growing status within the gang conflict. Online, she projected fearlessness. Her Twitter posts regularly targeted rivals, celebrated fallen friends, and warned enemies. Behind that tough image, though, there were signs that she understood the danger surrounding her. Some of her final messages hinted that she knew people were actively hunting her, and that death was becoming a real possibility. In early 2014, community leaders and police officers actually tried to intervene. While conducting outreach in one of Chicago's most dangerous areas, they spotted Gakira standing near enemy territory. Recognizing the danger she was in, they approached her and offered resources and opportunities that might help her leave the streets behind. She declined and walked away. Less than 2 months later, on April 11, 2014, that danger finally caught up with her. A gunman wearing a hood opened fire near a home on South Eberhard Avenue. Gakira was struck 7 times. 2 other young men were wounded during the shoot, but investigators quickly concluded that she had been the intended target. She died at just 17 years old. Magnolia Shorty, born Renetta Yamika Lowe Bridgewater. Magnolia Shorty came up in the Magnolia Projects of New Orleans, a place that shaped both her identity and her music. Even as a young girl, people around her could see she had something special. She carried a natural charisma and talent that made it seem like she was destined to rise above the struggles that surrounded her. And eventually, she did. Years later, she would appear on the remix of Jada Kiss's Smoking Gun and be featured on Courtney Hart's My Boy. But long before those opportunities came along, Magnolia Shorty had already earned respect in New Orleans' legendary bounce music scene. Her breakthrough came in 1997 with the release of her debut project, Monkey on the Dassic. The album was surprisingly short, consisting of just 5 tracks and an introduction from Manny Fresh. Despite its size, it left a lasting mark on the culture. In fact, it would end up being the only official album she ever released during her lifetime. What really stood out was the title track, which quickly became a bounce music classic and helped establish her as one of the city's most recognizable voices. Much of that success was fueled by the energy she brought into the studio. Manny Fresh later recalled that she recorded the song in a single take. From the moment she walked into the room, she carried herself like somebody who already knew she had a hit on her hands. She even brought her cheerleading squad with her, creating an atmosphere that made everyone feel like something special was happening. The confidence was contagious, and the record reflected it. The song itself wasn't packed with complicated lyrics. Instead, it thrived on infectious hooks and raw energy, all layered over the distinctive early Cash Money sound that was helping separate the label from everybody else in the South. Magnolia Shorty's rise began after she caught the attention of Birdman, who discovered her talent and brought her into the Cash Money family. Over the years, she developed a close relationship with the label, especially with Birdman, whom she viewed as a father figure. Another major influence in her life was Soulja Slim. Back when he was still known as Magnolia Slim, he became one of her mentors and eventually gave her the nickname Magnolia Shorty, a nod to the fact that both artists had grown up in the Magnolia projects. After signing with Cash Money, she became one of the label's earliest female stars, alongside Miss T. From there, she worked closely with artists like BG and Juvenile, appearing on records that celebrated both her city and her neighborhood. Songs like Magnolia Shorty and Juvenile's Third Ward Soldier helped cement her place within New Orleans hip-hop culture and made her a respected figure in the local scene. As the years passed, her influence only grew stronger. In 2009, she performed at the SXSW Music Festival and later earned the award for Best Bounce Song at the Underground Hip Hop Awards in New Orleans. Having been affiliated with the Cash Money movement since the early days, she remained deeply connected to the label's legacy. By 2010, she was actively recording new music and working toward a long-awaited second album under the Cash Money and Young Money banner. Then came December 20th, 2010. Magnolia was preparing to travel to Miami for an upcoming Bounce Music Festival and had stopped by her apartment complex to grab a few things before leaving town. It should have been a routine stop. Instead, it became the final moments of her life. As she entered the gated Georgetown apartments in New Orleans East, another vehicle slipped through the gate behind her. The car maneuvered into position and blocked her path. Within seconds, two armed men jumped out and opened fire directly into her vehicle. The attack was swift, calculated, and relentless. Magnolia was struck 26 times. Sitting beside her was Jerome Hampton, who was also caught in the barrage of gunfire. Both were killed inside the vehicle in what investigators described as a targeted double homicide. Tara Correa McMullen. Tara Correa McMullen's story didn't start in Los Angeles. She spent her early years on the East Coast before moving to Northern California with her mother and sister in 1996. A few years later, Tara and her mother decided to head south to Los Angeles, chasing the same thing countless families come to the city looking for: a better life and a fresh start. Those first years weren't easy. The family bounced between budget hotels while trying to get on their feet.
Oh, she's pretty.
Despite the instability, Tara enrolled in a local high school where she formed a close friendship with a classmate named Morris Tipton. Around that same time, she was also
really
beginning to talk
pretty.
seriously about her dream of becoming an actress. Then, almost out of nowhere, an opportunity landed in her lap. Tara's mother happened to work at a casting agency, and one day she overheard the casting director struggling to find the right girl for a role in an upcoming Martin Lawrence movie. Seeing an opportunity, she suggested her youngest daughter. The
She's so
remarkable part
pretty.
was that Tara had never acted before. She had no professional experience, no resume, and no formal training. Still, something about her stood out. The director saw potential and and gave her a chance. The gamble paid off. Tara landed the role of the only girl on an otherwise all-boys basketball team, making her feature film debut. After the movie was released that summer, her career gained momentum almost immediately when she secured a recurring role on the popular television series, Judging Amy. At the same time, things seemed to be improving at home. Her mother finally managed to rent an apartment, giving Tara something she hadn't really had before, a place to call home and a bedroom of her own. But Los Angeles can be deceiving. Some neighborhoods seem perfectly normal when the sun is out. Kids play outside, people walk the streets, and everything appears peaceful. Then night falls, and an entirely different reality reveals itself. The neighborhood Tara moved into was heavily affected by gang activity, and the dangers lurking beneath the surface would soon become impossible to ignore. Tara adapted quickly to her surroundings. She picked up the local slang, the way people talked, and the rhythm of life around her with the same natural ability that made her such a convincing actress. Her performances on Judging Amy impressed producers so much that writers continued expanding her role. On the show, she portrayed Graciela Reyes,
I look
a
like her,
troubled and
just without
hardened
blue
teenager
eyes.
who had been abandoned by much of her family. Throughout the storyline, Judge Amy, played by
No.
Amy Brenneman,
We don't have
fought
similar
tirelessly
features?
to help
Yeah.
the young girl
Okay
turn her
then.
life
The only thing
around.
is she got blue eyes. I got
Graciela's
brown
story
eyes.
became increasingly
Because her
tragic.
nose are very,
And
very
you
much
cut off
alike.
your
Caught
head.
up in
Yeah.
gang violence, faced
And she
adult
wear hoop
criminal
earrings. I
charges,
wear
and was ultimately
gauges.
murdered while incarcerated. What made the role so
And she does
haunting
her
in
eyebrows
hindsight
differently.
was how closely parts of it began to mirror Tara's real life. About halfway through her run on the show, people around her started noticing changes. Her talent agency later said she was becoming increasingly unreliable. It reached a point where agency staff often had to personally pick her up and drive her to work just to make sure she arrived on set. Her friend Maurice noticed the shift as well. The girl who had once seemed focused on acting was now spending more and more time around the same kinds of people she portrayed on television. The line between the world she acted in and the world she lived in appeared to be getting thinner. Then came the discovery that terrified her mother. At just 15 years old, Tara had become involved with a man who was 10 years older than her, a known gang member with a criminal record and time behind bars. Her mother desperately tried to pull her away from that influence and reportedly hoped law enforcement would find a reason to lock him up before he could drag her daughter any deeper into that world. According to family attorney Gloria Allred, Tara herself was never considered a gang member. Instead, she appeared to be a teenager who believed she could help or save someone caught up in their lifestyle. Unfortunately, good intentions are often no match for the realities of the streets. As time went on, the warning signs continued to pile up. Not long after her run on Judging Amy ended, her talent agency dropped her altogether. The promising young actress who had seemed destined for bigger opportunities suddenly found herself drifting further away from Hollywood and closer to danger. Then, the worst-case scenario became reality. Just a few months after her final episode aired, Tara was spending time with her boyfriend at an apartment complex on an evening that seemed completely ordinary. Without warning, gunfire erupted. Police later described it as a gang-related walk-up shooting. 3 people were struck as bullets tore through the area. Tara was hit 5 times. Paramedics rushed her to the hospital where doctors fought to save her life. Despite their efforts, she died less than 3 hours later. She was only 16 years old. Moesha Malta Dean. At just 23 years old, Moesha Malta Dean had already made a name for herself in Philadelphia's underworld and not in a way most people would ever want.
So you're just
Born in
watching
St. Catherine,
documentaries about
Jamaica,
actors
she
and
eventually
stuff
moved
that
to the United States.
or
But instead of building a
You
different
know, I'm
path, she quickly
self-educating
found
myself
herself
about
pulled into the
what
streets.
goes on in the
Before
world.
long, she linked up with Kenroy
they
Thomas,
sound like
the
actors.
leader of a crew
They're
connected
not
to
actress.
Jamaica's
K.I. isn't an
feared
actress. She's
One
a
Order
regular female
gang. From there, Moshe's
that got caught up
involvement
in the
only grew
streets.
deeper. She wasn't somebody standing on the sidelines or simply associated with the
The
crew
next
by
one is
name.
about teachers.
According to investigators, she played an active role in the gang's
I need you a
operations,
burrito.
helping organize and carry out.
Number 1, Mary Kay Letourneau, the teacher who called it love. Mary Kay Letourneau was born Mary Catherine Schmitz on January 30th, 1962, in Tustin, California,
She's
into
an
a family
Aquarius.
that,
She's
by
not a
any outward
Capricorn. She's
measure,
crazy.
appeared to be a
Strange.
portrait of
I could
American
tell.
respectability and conservative moral authority. Her father, John George Schmitz, was a deeply religious, ultra-conservative politician who served as a California state senator and later as a United States congressman, representing the far-right wing of the Republican Party and even running as a presidential candidate in 1972 under the American Independent Party. The Schmitz household was governed by strict Catholic principles, and Mary Kay grew up immersed in a world of rigid religious expectation, traditional family values, and the pressure of living under a politically prominent name. Yet beneath the surface of that carefully constructed public image, the Schmitz family carried its own deeply buried fractures. When Mary Kay was still a young woman, her father's own extramarital affair was publicly exposed, effectively destroying his political career and shattering the illusion of the morally upright family he had so carefully projected to the world. That revelation sent shockwaves through the Schmitz household, and Mary Kay, who had been particularly close to her father and deeply invested in the image he represented, found herself quietly absorbing the contradictions between the values she had been raised with and the reality she now faced. She attended Cornelia Connolly High School in Anaheim, an all-girls
Why you
Catholic
give it back to
preparatory
me when they gotta
institution,
go back on
where
top
by
of
all
the
accounts
bed?
she developed a reputation as someone who enjoyed
I don't
socializing
got no
and
more
pushing
food
against
over
the
here.
boundaries of the strict environment around her. She later enrolled at Arizona State University in Tempe, where she initially harbored ambitions of following her father into politics, but her life took an unexpected turn when she met a fellow student named Steve Letourneau. She became pregnant, and in keeping with the conservative Catholic expectations of her family, the couple married in 1984, both dropping out of college before completing their degrees. The family relocated first to Anchorage, Alaska, where Steve worked as a baggage handler for Alaska Airlines, and then to Seattle, Washington, where over the next several years the couple had 4 children together. The marriage was by most accounts deeply troubled from early on. Reports described persistent financial difficulties, allegations of infidelity on both sides, and a deep emotional disconnect between the two, with Mary Kay herself later stating that she had never truly been in love with her husband but had entered the marriage under pressure from her family. Determined to build something of her own, Mary Kay enrolled in night classes at Seattle University while caring for her children during the day, and in 1989 she graduated and secured a teaching position at Shorewood Elementary School in the Seattle suburb of Burien, Washington. By all professional accounts, she was an exceptional teacher. Parents praised her warmly, there were steady waiting lists for students to be placed in her class, and her annual performance reviews were consistently glowing. She had a genuine gift for connecting with children, for recognizing their individual strengths and nurturing their potential, and she threw herself into her work with an enthusiasm that made her one of the most admired educators in the Highline School District. It was in this professional context that Mary Kay Letourneau first encountered Villy Foilot in the fall of 1991, when he was a bright-eyed second-grade student in her class. Villy came from a working-class American Samoan family living in the White Center neighborhood of Seattle, a community marked by economic hardship and instability. His father was in and out of prison throughout his childhood, and Villy often seemed to be searching for connection and stability in a home life that provided him with very little of either. Mary Kay recognized his natural artistic talent almost immediately, and she began mentoring him, introducing him to the piano, buying him art supplies, and encouraging his creative expression in ways that, to outside observers, looked entirely like the kind of extra care a dedicated teacher might give to a gifted but struggling student. She even took a community college art class with him, blurring the line between professional and personal in ways that should, in retrospect, have raised concerns far earlier than they did. Over the years that followed, even as Billy moved out of her class, Mary Kay maintained her mentoring relationship with him. The bond between them deepened in ways that she would later struggle to articulate to investigators, prosecutors, and the public. By January 1996, Billy had been placed back into Mary Kay's combined 5th and 6th grade class at Shorewood Elementary, and it was during this period that their relationship, by her own subsequent admission, began to shift from mentorship into something far more dangerous and criminally serious. The sexual relationship between Mary Kay Letourneau and Billy Foileau began in June 1996, when Billy had just turned 13 years old. She was 34, a married mother of 4, and a trusted figure of authority in his young life. On June 18, 1996, less than a month after their relationship became sexual, a police officer discovered Letourneau and Foileau together in a parked minivan at a marina parking lot at approximately 1 in the morning. Both gave false names when questioned, and Billy told the officer he was 18 years old, not 12 or 13. The officer was suspicious but ultimately released them after they denied any physical contact had taken place. The discovery did not immediately halt the relationship. Mary Kay continued seeing Billy in secret throughout the summer and into the fall of 1996, during which time she became pregnant with his child. Billy entered 7th grade at Cascade Middle School that September, no longer officially her student, and yet their secret relationship continued. The unraveling began in February
You said
1997,
no longer her
when
student.
Billy's husband Steve discovered a cache of love letters she had written to Billy. Letters that made the nature of their relationship
I told you this
unmistakably
one was
clear.
gonna be
He
crazy.
confided in a relative who reported the relationship to
You
school
would
officials
trust
and the
me.
Child Protective
I
Service.
feel like I ate too
Police were
fast.
notified, and on March
You
4,
always eat more than me.
1998, Letourneau was formally arrested and charged with second-degree child rape. At the time of her arrest, she was 7 months pregnant with Billy's
Because
child
I
and
don't
was
have
allowed
it
to
in me
remain
to
free on bail
overstuff
as she
myself.
awaited the birth. She gave birth to a daughter, Audrey, on May 23, 1997. On August 7,
Exactly.
1997, Mary Kay Letourneau
You
pleaded
don't
guilty
think
to
it's
2
time
counts
for you
of
to stop
second-degree
doing
rape
that?
of a child in
stop
King
doing that
County
for a really
Superior
long time.
Court before Judge Linda Lau. The plea agreement initially resulted in a sentence of 89 months in prison, the full statutory term, but the judge suspended all but 6 months of that sentence on the condition that Letourneau immediately enter a sex offender treatment program and have absolutely no further contact with Billy Foileau. The nation watched the case with a mixture of outrage and, disturbingly, fascination, with some media coverage of the time treating it with a degree of sensationalism that many critics would later argue minimized the gravity of the abuse. Mary Kay served her 6 months and was released in January 1998. She had been out of jail for less than a month when, on February 3, 1998, police discovered her once again with Billy Foileau in a parked car in the middle of the night. She was pregnant with his second child. The discovery was a catastrophic violation of her probation and the no-contact order, and Judge Lau, who had extended her considerable leniency the first time, had no choice but to revoke the plea agreement. The remaining 89 months of her original sentence were reinstated, meaning Mary Kay Letourneau would now serve the full term. She gave birth to a second daughter, Georgia, while incarcerated, and would spend the next 7.5 years in prison. During her incarceration, she reportedly smuggled letters out to Billy by hiding them inside breast milk bottle lids. Her first husband, Steve Letourneau, filed for divorce and eventually relocated to Alaska with their 4 children. Meanwhile, Billy Foileau, who had been legally prohibited from having any contact with Letourneau, grew up carrying the profound and complicated psychological weight of what had happened to him, raised in the knowledge that his 2 daughters were being cared for by relatives while their mother served time in prison. Letourneau was released from prison on August 4, 2004, and within months she and Billy reunited.
Homie
The
said,
legal
I might be
no-contact
white, but
order
this
had
pussy ain't
expired
white.
with her
Let's
sentence,
delete
and
that.
there was nothing to legally prevent them from seeing each other again. On May 20, 2005,
My
in a
pussy ain't
ceremony
white.
held at a
It ain't
restaurant in the
Spanish.
Seattle
Nobody
area,
cares.
Mary
Okay?
Kay
It's
Letourneau,
not
age
Spanish
43,
neither.
Billy Foileau, who was
cares?
22. The wedding attracted
said what?
enormous
Who
media
cares?
attention, and the couple
You said
sold the
okay?
story of
Who
their
cares?
reunion to various media
You said who
outlets.
cares?
For
Yeah.
a time,
I
they
do.
appeared together on talk shows and in magazine interviews, and they
Because I might be
co-hosted
white
a
as shit
bizarre
with
event
my
called Hot
vagina
for Teacher
anyway.
Night at a Seattle
Who's
nightclub.
talking about vaginas, though? Any of that right now?
All I can think about right now is my fucking
And the
vagina.
couple remained together for over a decade before Billy filed for legal separation in 2019. Their divorce was finalized and the two went their separate ways. In the years after their separation,
Mommy
Philly
said that's not
Cuomo
even
began
your
speaking more
vagina.
openly and critically
It's
about what
somebody
had
else's
happened to him,
vagina.
and the perspective he offered was sobering.
Kiss my
In a
hand.
television interview, he described the complexity and confusion of what he had experienced, acknowledging the deep harm it had caused him while also grappling with the emotional entanglement that had defined so much of his young life. Mary Kay Letourneau, meanwhile, was diagnosed with stage 4 colon cancer in late 2019 and died on July 6, 2020, at her home in Des Moines, Washington. She was 58 years old. The two daughters she had with Boileau, Audrey, and Georgia were 23 and 22 respectively at the time of her death. The case of Mary Kay Letourneau left a permanent mark on the American cultural and legal landscape. It exposed the dangerous romanticization that
Some of the biggest rappers in the industry are currently locked up behind bars, just like Tay K, who once had the #1 song in the world, but will now serve the rest of his life in prison.
You're young, but you're gonna have to make better choices. Do you understand?
Yes, ma'am.
So I'm gonna sentence him to 80 years in the prison, give him credit for any time served.
However, there are rappers facing life in prison for taking out another rapper, this being Young and Ace and K. The major fact in court filed because of the evidence from a gang member claiming it was a $10,000 bounty for Julio.
They know everything I love, bro. I'm the homie, bro. I put everything on my soul, on my kids. I'm the one that smacked Julio for that.
Rooted in street and music ties, with Queso seen as one of Ace's most loyal associates during the ATKB Julio's crew. But here's where it gets interesting. Queso is currently serving a life sentence for a separate M charge, but also being charged for the passing of Adrian Gaynor, otherwise known as Bibby, who was like a little brother to Julio.
Every day after school, he'll come to me, like, he coming straight to me. We just, and like, you know, the regular, they walk in the house, we dab each other. I'm like, what's up, bro? What you been on? Like, he tell me, I went to school, big bro. And guess what school he was going to? I'm like, look, bro, I love you, bro. Be safe, you know. And that's how it all began, like, with so many people. Like, the last word with me be, I love you. Be safe. You know what I'm saying?
But it's important to watch his facial features when Vlad mentions Queso's name being arrested for the passing of Bibby.
There's a rapper named K-Su. Yeah. Who basically was posting videos bragging about, you know, different KTA members, or, I mean, whatever you want to call it, and he talking about Bibby. Yeah. And he actually got arrested for Bibby. Yeah. For the life of me, I don't know why you would commit a murder and then go on the internet and brag about it. It just makes absolutely no sense.
Making it very clear these two were rivals. However, there's one viral reply reading, am I the only one who thinks Queso and Young and Ace wanted Julio gone as soon as possible before Julio got the chance to retaliate for what they did to his little bro? Because Jacksonville police think the exact same thing. It would be shared on the news. Jacksonville Sheriff T.K. Waters sends a PSA to Young and Ace and his crew, ATK, after Julio's hitters were caught.
So Young and Ace has long been known in Jacksonville. We are consistently monitoring those groups. We have people that are always watching them. I won't speak to the chief's investigation.
I'm from where you from.
We don't have an investigation on him right now, but he can't move around in Jacksonville without us knowing about it. That's for the betterment of our community.
However, when you add the evidence of Young and Ace on top of Queso's, you begin to learn
Oh, really?
Young and Ace to be arrested in 2026. The sheriff announced several crimes in the area are due to Young and Ace and his team.
Oh, really?
Expect a Rico.
Ever?
He's had Young and Ace getting
You
exposed
believe
to the
that?
Julio trial. The
You
news from
believe that?
who partied with Julio the night of his passing reveals she dated Young and Ace's brother, Trevon Bullard. Fans believe testimony during Alicia Andrews' trial will lead to ATK Rico.
Some point when you were younger, did you date someone who was associated with a rapper by the name of Young and Ace? Yeah. What is Young and Ace's real name? Keontae. Is that Keontae Bullard? And who were you dating that was related to Mr. Bullard? Trayvon. How is Trayvon Bullard related to Keontae Bullard? They're brothers. When did you date him? In 2018. And did something happen to him? Yeah, he passed away. When did he pass away? June 5th, 2018. And how did he pass away? Was that a part of this rival?
viral tweet from someone following the case saying that the trial is crazy. The feds are watching. Whoever Young and Ace is, they're drafting up a RICO. They say ATK stands for Ace Top Diddy. To further show that Ace knew what was going on, he texted one of the suspects who did the crime a picture to make fun of Julio.
The state presented a picture from Gathrigh's cell phone taken one day after the murder, showing a bottle of Don Julio. The detective testified that, based on knowledge, this represents an insult to the rapper Julio Fulio.
This case got Ace to begin because he quickly tweeted out that he was ending his team ATK by saying, "Ain't no such thing as ATK no more. That stuff is gone and over with." He even made an Instagram video speaking on it. I say no more ATK, it ain't no more. I'm talking about, everybody always got the same thing. When the time for the Lord to be paid, it's be at. Y'all need to say, it's be at though. Niggas need to get married. When the time to spend that money, what to be? All we got to say, but don't be on shit, man. Don't get no feet wet or nothing, man. Niggas be talking, man. What's wrong with these, man? Don't talk like me. Don't get a man. When I say no more ATK, ain't no more. The prosecutors are still claiming that Ace is still a part of ATK, no matter what he said about ending the team.
So sorry, not the meaning of ATK, but that Young and Ace is a part of ATK. Say whether you know that?
Yeah.
Okay. ATK and 6 Block